The first insult landed before the soup cooled. We were 10 minutes into dinner when my younger brother leaned back in his chair, stretched his arms like he owned the room, and said it with a grin that had practiced for years. So Logan said loud enough for everyone, "You still living off trash, Ave? Or did you finally upgrade to leftovers?" The words hit the table and didn't bounce. They sank. The crystal glasses around us rattled softly as people laughed. Not surprised laughter, comfortable laughter. The kind that says this joke has been told before and will be told again. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. I didn't look up. I didn't blink. I just kept chewing, slow, methodical, as if I hadn't heard him at all. That was the first mistake. "Come on," his fiancée added, tilting her head syrupy. "It's kind of impressive, honestly. Turning other people's garbage into whatever it is you do." My father sighed. Not at them. At me. My mother didn't even look over. She reached for her wine glass like this was weather. Unavoidable. Mildly inconvenient. I swallowed. The ceiling lights hummed faintly. Somewhere behind the wall, the dishwasher clicked as it shifted cycles. I noticed stupid details like that when my body went cold, when something inside me pulled tight and quiet. Logan laughed again. "Relax. We're kidding, right?" No one corrected him. The house smelled like rosemary and money, fresh paint over old wood, the kind of place where voices echo even when people whisper, where every dinner feels like a performance and everyone knows their role. Mine had always been simple. Don't embarrass us. I lifted my glass and took a sip of wine. Let it sit on my tongue. Let the burn distract me from the heat creeping up my neck. That was when the television changed. 1 second it was playing soft holiday music on mute. Snowy commercials, perfect families. Then the screen flickered. The music cut. A sharp red banner slid across the bottom. Breaking. The anchor's voice filled the room, clear and calm, trained to sound important without sounding emotional. "Good evening. We interrupt our programming for a special report. Bloomberg tonight is revealing the identity of the anonymous founder behind one of the fastest-growing sustainable design empires in the world." Someone at the far end of the table sucked in a breath. I felt it before I saw it. That subtle shift in the air, like the room had leaned forward. Logan turned toward the screen, still smiling. "What is this?" The anchor continued. "Valued at over $8 billion, the company has reshaped the luxury market, while its founder remained completely out of public view." My mother finally looked up. And tonight, the anchor said sources confirm that the woman behind it all is Atlanta native Avery Caldwell. Silence. Not polite silence. Not awkward silence. The kind that presses on your ears. Logan's glass slipped from his hand. It didn't shatter right away. It hit the table first, tipped, rolled, then fell. Red wine splashed across the white tablecloth like a wound. My father froze mid-motion. His jaw didn't drop. His face didn't change. It just drained, like someone had pulled a plug. My mother's fingers tightened around her stemware. Too tight. I saw the tendon stand out. A single drop spilled over the rim and slid down her wrist. On the screen, my photo appeared. Clean, black background, no smile, just me looking exactly the way I always did when I wasn't pretending. Logan laughed once, a short, broken sound. "That's not—" No one joined him. If you've ever had family treat you like you don't matter, if you've ever been the punchline at your own table, if someone you loved made you feel small and expected you to swallow it with a smile, go ahead and hit like. Subscribe if you're still here. These stories don't get told for the people who always win. They get told for the ones who were supposed to disappear. The anchor kept talking. Numbers, analysts, industry reactions, all noise. I stared at the table instead, at the smear of wine soaking into linen that cost more than my first month's rent had once upon a time. Logan finally turned back to me. His eyes darted over my face like he was searching for a tell, a laugh, a wink, anything that would make this a prank. "Say something," he said. "Avery." I set my glass down carefully. The base made a soft click against the wood. That was the second something in me snapped. My chest felt hollow, not angry, not shaky, empty, like a room after furniture's been cleared out. My mother found her voice first. "Well," she said too quickly, "this is unexpected. Unexpected." My father cleared his throat. "This must be some mistake. Names get confused all the time." Logan nodded hard, grateful. "Yeah, totally. Caldwell's a common name." "It's really not his," fiancé said faintly. I felt eyes on me, waiting, measuring, calculating how this could be folded back into a story that didn't disrupt them. Gaslighting starts quietly, with doubt, with tone, with the suggestion that reality might be negotiable if you just speak calmly enough. My mother turned fully toward me then. She smiled, that practiced social smile, the one she used at charity events when donors asked uncomfortable questions. "If this is some project you're involved in," she said, "you should have told us. We don't like surprises." There it was, not pride, not apology, control. Logan leaned forward. "You could have said something you know, instead of letting us look stupid." I met his eyes for the first time all night. He flinched. My father stood, his chair scraped against the floor, sharp and loud. "Let's all take a breath. We don't need a scene." A scene. As if this wasn't one already. As if they hadn't built it line by line year after year. I opened my mouth, closed it. I wasn't ready yet. My mother reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Her grip was light, polite, performative. "You've always been so sensitive," she said softly. "We tease because we care." I pulled my hand back. The dishwasher clicked again. Cycle complete. My phone vibrated once against my thigh. I didn't look. I didn't need to. Logan laughed brittle now. "Guess picking through trash worked out, huh?" The words hung there, daring me. I pushed my chair back. The sound cut through the room like a blade. But before I could stand, my mother spoke again. Her voice dropped, low, flat, for my ears only. "Just remember," she said, eyes cold, "everything you have came from us first." That was when I knew. This wasn't going to end quietly. I was never part of the plan, not officially, not on paper, not in the quiet conversations that happened behind closed doors with drinks poured too strong and futures mapped out like real estate. I learned that early. I was 8 the first time my mother forgot to pick me up. Not from school, from a fundraiser. Black tie, downtown. I was dressed in a white dress that itched at the seams, hair pulled too tight, shoes a size too small because they'd been bought to grow into. I stood near the valet for almost an hour watching other kids leave with their parents until a woman from the organizing committee knelt in front of me and asked whose child I was. I told her my last name. Her smile changed. "Oh," she said. "You're one of the Caldwells. One of. Not the." That was the first time it clicked. I belonged to the family, but I wasn't of it. Logan was different. Logan was announced. When he was born, there were flowers lining the driveway. When I was born, there were congratulations cards tucked into a drawer. I've seen them since. Beige envelopes, conservative handwriting, nothing celebratory, more like condolences. My father used to tell the story at dinner parties, how surprised they were, how unplanned it all was. He laughed when he said it like it was charming. "We already had everything we needed," he'd say, lifting his glass. Then Avery came along. People laughed on cue. Logan never had to earn space. He occupied it naturally, loud, confident, always centered. If he walked into a room, the room adjusted. If I walked in, I was expected to fit whatever space was left. By the time I was 12, I understood the rules without anyone spelling them out. Don't ask for attention. Don't take up time. Don't want things that don't make sense, especially not things that couldn't be monetized, married, or marketed. I loved textures, weight, the way fabric behaved when you pulled it too tight or let it fall. I loved the quiet order of old things clothes that had lived before that carried someone else's shape. I used to sit on the floor of my grandmother's storage room with scissors and pins taking apart coats no one wore anymore. I wasn't trying to fix them. I wanted to understand them. The first time my mother caught me, she stared like I'd skinned a pet. "That was cashmere," she said flatly. "It was torn," I answered. She sighed the way she always did when I failed to be impressive. That's not the point. The point was never the object. It was the image. Logan brought home trophies. Even when he lost, they gave him something. Participation plaques, honorable mentions. His accomplishments were celebrated on volume alone. Mine were tolerated in silence. When I said I wanted to study design, my father laughed. Actually, laughed. Sat down on the edge of the bed like his knees had given out. Design, he repeated. What does that even mean? My mother tried a different approach. She always did. You're creative, she said carefully. That's fine, but creativity is a hobby, not a life. I was 16. I remember because I still had braces and a chipped nail from sewing too late the night before. What's the plan? Avery, she asked, tone thin. There has to be a plan. There was. It just didn't include them. Logan was the future. Everyone knew it. He was groomed for it, introduced to people before he could legally drink. They spoke about him like an investment. I was a liability. At family gatherings, I was placed strategically, next to people who wouldn't ask questions, at the end of tables, slightly out of frame in photos. Someone once asked my mother how many children she had. She paused. 2, she said quickly, then corrected herself. Well, 1 and Avery, like an add-on, a footnote. The only person who never spoke about me like that was my grandmother. Margaret Caldwell didn't say much. She watched. She listened. She noticed who leaned in and who leaned away. She was the only one who noticed I never wore new clothes even when the closets were full. The only one who asked what I was working on instead of what I was doing next. One night, long past midnight, she found me sitting on the floor with pins in my mouth, hunched over a jacket I'd taken apart and stitched back together differently. She didn't scold me, didn't gasp, didn't ask how much it cost. She sat down slowly beside me, joint stiff silk robe pooling around her ankles. You see structure, she said after a while. Not a question. I nodded. You see possibility where other people see waste. I didn't answer. I was afraid if I did it would disappear. My grandmother reached out and touched the seam, ran her fingers over it like she was reading something only she could understand. Don't let this house teach you to be small, she said. It does that to people. That was the first time anyone had framed it that way. Not me being wrong. Not me being difficult. The house. When my acceptance letter came, it arrived on a Tuesday. No confetti, no fanfare, just an envelope with my name typed clean and precise. Full scholarship. I read it 3 times before I believed it. My father didn't. He skimmed it, handed it back, and said, "That's nice. But what's the end game?" My mother smiled too quickly. "Rhode Island is cold." Logan smirked. "Have fun playing with scraps." That night I packed a bag, quietly, folded everything I owned into something that could be carried. I told them at dinner. "I'm going," I said, "and I'm not coming back if you keep pretending this is a phase." My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "If you walk out," he said, "you do it without us." My mother's eyes shone perfectly calibrated. "You're being dramatic." Logan didn't even look up from his phone. I waited for something. Anything. What I got was silence. 1 week later, every account with my name on it went dark. Cards declined. Access revoked. A clean cut done efficiently. I had $800. Cash. Folded bills I'd hidden from babysitting and selling old clothes online. That was it. I left without a scene, without a goodbye. My grandmother hugged me at the door, held on longer than necessary. "Build something they can't dismiss," she whispered. The door closed behind me with a sound I felt in my bones. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because some doors don't close. They lock. And you don't realize you've been standing outside your whole life until you finally stop knocking. I didn't become invisible on purpose. It just happened when no one was looking for me. The city didn't welcome me. It didn't reject me either. It just kept moving indifferent, loud, unforgiving. I arrived with 1 suitcase, $800, and a last name I stopped using the moment I crossed state lines. My first apartment wasn't really an apartment. It was a room that smelled like old paint and radiator heat. 4th floor, no elevator, 1 narrow window facing a brick wall so close I could hear my neighbor cough through it. The bathroom was shared. The lock barely worked. I slept on the floor for 3 weeks, not because I was making some noble sacrifice, because I didn't have the money for anything else. Every morning I folded my blanket, shoved it into the corner, and pretended the room was temporary, that if I kept moving it wouldn't have time to claim me. I took whatever work didn't ask questions: alterations, repairs, cleaning threads off samples for designers who wouldn't look me in the eye. I said yes to everything. I learned fast which hands were safe and which ones weren't. At night I walked, back alleys, loading docks, the edges of the industry no one photographed, where fabric was tossed because it didn't make the cut, because a shade was half a tone off, because perfection had a narrow definition and zero patience. People called it waste. I called it inventory. The first time I dragged a bag of discarded wool up 4 flights of stairs, my arms shook so badly I had to sit on the landing. I remember pressing my forehead to the cold metal railing, breathing through it, telling myself not to cry. That was the third something in me that hardened. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have a pitch deck. I had muscle memory and obsession. I worked until my fingers split taped, then kept going. The hum of my sewing machine became the only sound that felt familiar. I posted one piece online, no face, no name, just an image, clean, quiet, honest. It didn't go viral. It found the right person. A woman messaged me 3 days later. No emojis, no exclamation points. "Who are you?" she wrote, "and why does this feel intentional?" We met in a cafe that smelled like burnt espresso and ambition. She didn't ask about my background. She asked about my process. She asked why I chose certain seams, why I rejected others. When she slid the offer across the table, she didn't smile. "Stay anonymous," she said. "Mystery ages better than exposure." I signed with an initial. That was the moment I disappeared completely. The years blurred after that. Workspaces moved, teams grew, orders stacked. I hired people no one else wanted anymore. Skilled hands dismissed by an industry addicted to youth and speed. We didn't chase trends. We built scarcity. We didn't explain ourselves. We let the product speak. People tried to guess who I was. They were wrong every time. I watched interviews where stylists said they had a friend who made the pieces. I read articles that called me a collective, a ghost, a marketing trick. I stayed quiet. Silence is powerful when you know why you're using it. I lived smaller than I needed to, took the subway, wore the same coat until it softened into shape. I learned how to be rich without looking it, how to walk through rooms without leaving a trail. No one from home called. I didn't expect them to. Once a year on my birthday, I got a handwritten letter. My grandmother's script never changed. Careful. Slanted slightly to the right. She never asked what I was building, never asked for proof. She wrote about the garden, about the weather, about the way the house felt emptier than it used to. "I see you," she ended every letter. Same words. No conditions. I kept them all. By year 5, we had waiting lists. By year 7, we had imitators. By year 9, we had numbers that made bankers nervous. And still no one knew my name. I liked it that way. Fame is loud. Control is quiet. I watched my family from a distance, the way you watch a show you used to love, through headlines, through mutual acquaintances who didn't know we were related. Logan took over a division, lost it, took another, got engaged, traded up, smiled wide in photos. My parents aged into their certainty. They sat on boards, hosted dinners, spoke about legacy like it was a given. I didn't exist in their narrative. That was the point. The 10th year was the hardest, not because of the work, because of the waiting. I had built something undeniable, something too big to stay hidden forever. The walls were closing in, journalists were circling, investors wanted a face. I said no, again and again. Then the call came, not from the press, not from my team, from a number I hadn't seen light up my phone in a decade. My grandmother. Her voice was thinner, still steady, still hers. "I don't have the time I thought I would," she said. No drama, no tears, just fact. She didn't ask me to come home. She didn't guilt me. She never did. "I'd like to see you," she said. "As you are." I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. That night, I stood in my studio alone, ran my hand over racks of garments that had traveled further than I ever had. I thought about the girl on the floor of a storage room, pins in her mouth, hoping no one would tell her to stop. I thought about the house that taught me to shrink, and I made a decision. I wouldn't announce myself. I wouldn't warn them. I would let the truth arrive the way it always does, uninvited, unstoppable, and loud enough to shatter crystal. 10 years of silence doesn't make a sound when it breaks. It makes an impact. And I was done whispering. The room didn't breathe. Not after the screen went dark. Not after the anchor signed off. Not after the last syllable of my name stopped echoing in the corners of a house built to amplify voices like theirs. Crystal lay broken at Logan's feet. No one moved to clean it. My mother was the first to recover. She always was. Survival instinct sharpened by decades of social warfare. She reached for her napkin, dabbed the wine from her wrist, smiled like this was a misunderstanding that could be corrected with tone alone. "Well," she said lightly, "that was dramatic. Dramatic." My father straightened his cufflinks. A stall tactic. He looked at the blank television, then at me, then back at the table. He didn't ask a question. He made a statement. "You should have told us." Logan found his voice again. It came out too loud, too fast. "This is messed up. You let us sit here like idiots." His fiancée laughed once. "High. Brittle. Okay, seriously. Who set this up?" I didn't answer. I folded my napkin. Once, twice, placed it on the table, aligned with the edge like I'd been taught. That was the moment they realized something was wrong. I stood. The chair legs scraped across the floor sharp enough to cut through the murmurs starting to build. Every sound stopped, even the dishwasher, even the air. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. For 10 years, I said you told anyone who asked that I was finding myself. My father opened his mouth, closed it. For 10 years, I continued, you laughed about me, you rewrote me, you used me as a warning. I turned to Logan. You called me trash, I said. So often it stopped sounding like an insult and started sounding like a title. He shook his head, already defensive. You're twisting this. I looked at his fiancée. You joined the chorus fast, I said. Congratulations, that takes talent. Her smile vanished. My mother stood now, slowly, carefully. Avery, she said the way you say a child's name when they're about to embarrass you in public. This isn't the place. I nodded once. You're right. It never was. The words landed heavier than shouting would have. I turned to the end of the table. My grandmother sat there, hands folded, eyes wet but steady. She hadn't spoken once. She didn't need to. For 10 years, I said one person wrote me letters. One. Never asked for proof, never asked for numbers, never asked me to explain myself. My mother inhaled sharply. We were giving you space. No, I said. You were giving yourselves cover. Silence again. Thicker now. My father's voice cut in low. Controlled. You don't get to rewrite history because you got lucky. That did it. I laughed. Just once. Lucky, I repeated. You froze every account I had the week I left. You canceled my access like I was a stolen card. You told people I was unstable, that I couldn't handle pressure, that I'd be back when reality hit. Logan looked down. I leaned forward, hands flat on the table. Reality did hit. It hit me every morning at 5 a.m. when I carried bags heavier than your ego up 4 flights of stairs. My mother's face tightened. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being accurate. I straightened. The company you just saw on that screen, I said, is worth $8.4 billion. I own the majority of it. I built it with people you discarded, with materials you threw away, with silence you mistook for weakness. My father finally snapped, We gave you everything. I met his eyes, held them. You gave me expectations, I said, and punishment when I refused them. Logan stood abruptly, chair tipping back. So what, you're here to humiliate us? I considered that. Then I shook my head. No, I came for one person. I turned fully toward my grandmother. For 10 years, I said softly, you believed in something you couldn't see. You are the only reason the word family still means anything to me. Her hand came up to her mouth. She didn't cry. She smiled. A small, fierce thing. My mother's voice cracked. "This is unbelievable." I looked back at her. "No," I said. "This is overdue." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Folded once, I placed it in the center of the table. "My shares in the family trusts," I said. "Liquidated. Effective next week." My father's face went slack. "You can't." "I already did." Logan stared at the paper like it might bite him. "You're walking away." "Yes." My mother laughed then. Actually laughed. "You're emotional. You'll regret this." I leaned in close enough that only she could hear me. "I regretted staying small," I said. "I won't regret leaving." I straightened and raised my voice just enough for the room. "As of tonight," I said, "this family has exactly one person I recognize." I walked to my grandmother's side and offered her my hand. She took it without hesitation. Logan stepped forward. "Avery, come on." I looked at him. Really looked. "Tell me," I said quietly, "how much did obedience pay you this year?" He flinched, like I'd struck him. My mother made a sound, half sob, half gasp. "You're breaking my heart." I paused at the doorway. "No," I said without turning. "I stopped offering it to you." The door closed behind us with a sound that felt final. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. My grandmother's grip tightened around mine. "Are you ready?" I asked. She nodded. Behind us, the house stayed lit, bright, empty. Inside, they would tell stories, rewrite scenes, convince themselves this was temporary. They were wrong. Some truths don't ask permission. They arrive, they sit down at your table, and they don't leave quietly. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started quietly, with phone calls that stopped being returned, with meetings that were rescheduled, with smiles that didn't reach eyes anymore. Old money doesn't explode, it evaporates. Logan lasted 73 days. That was the number. I know, because someone sent me the clip. Security footage from a lobby I'd never set foot in. Him standing stiff in a borrowed suit box at his feet, trying to keep his face neutral, while a guard waited politely for him to move. No shouting, no scene, just the sound of an elevator closing. The first client pulled out after a 30-second video made its way through the wrong group chat. Logan laughing, his fiancée sneering, my name used like a punchline. It wasn't outrage that did them in. It was embarrassment. The kind that spreads quietly at country clubs and private dinners. The kind people don't argue with. They just distance themselves from it. Within weeks, others followed. Funds moved. Seats changed. Invitations dried up. My parents tried to outrun it. They hosted more dinners, made more calls, laughed louder than necessary, pretended nothing had shifted, but the room had already tilted. My mother showed up to a luncheon she'd chaired for years and found her name missing from the place cards. Someone offered her a seat near the back. She stood there too long, smile fixed before accepting it. My father started drinking earlier. Logan's fiancée disappeared faster. The ring vanished from her hand before the month ended. She posted a photo from somewhere sunny with someone richer captioned, "New Chapter." Comments were turned off within minutes. People move on quickly when status is portable. I returned once. Early, gray morning, no press, no announcements. I parked the car myself. My grandmother was waiting in the foyer with 2 small suitcases, vintage, scuffed, already zipped. She looked lighter. We didn't go upstairs. We didn't check rooms. We didn't wait. My father stood at the top of the stairs, robe hanging loose, face gray. My mother hovered behind him, clutching a tissue she didn't need yet. No one spoke. I nodded once. Not forgiveness, not closure, recognition. The front door closed with a sound that didn't echo. That house would stay full of furniture and stories and ghosts. It could keep them. The drive to the airport took 20 minutes. My grandmother held my hand the entire way. Didn't say a word until we were airborne. "I always knew you'd come back for me," she said softly. "I never left you," I answered. "Home looks different when you choose it." Her room faces south. Morning light spills across the floor like it belongs there. She drinks tea slowly now. No rush, no schedule she didn't set herself. We eat breakfast on the terrace when the weather allows. 2 plates, 2 cups, no audience. Every so often she asks to see what I'm working on. She runs her fingers over the fabric, eyes closed, like she's listening to something underneath it. She never asks how much it's worth. I blocked every number from that house. Phones, emails, letters routed through lawyers I pay not to open them. Silence returned to sender. At first I waited for guilt. It never came. What came instead was space, clean, wide, quiet. I sleep better now. I breathe differently. My shoulders don't sit around my ears anymore. Success feels strange when no one is watching, when there's nothing to prove, when applause isn't coming. It turns out that's what peace looks like. People still ask about my family in interviews. I answer carefully. I have one, I say. She's doing well? That's all they get. The rest of the Caldwells still exist. They still host, still attend, still tell versions of the story that let them sleep at night. I don't correct them. Truth doesn't need defending once it's lived. Some nights my grandmother and I sit together and watch the city settle. Lights flicker on. Sounds fade. She leans her head back and hums softly an old tune I never learned the name of. I sketch. She watches. 10 years ago I left with $800 and a locked door behind me. Tonight there are 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom, 2 glasses on the counter, 1 quiet life that doesn't require permission. They can keep their tables, their names, their carefully arranged seats. I kept the only thing that ever mattered, freedom, and the one person who never asked me to earn it.